alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
I see dead people.
Hot shit.
Here's Johnny.
Stop.
We have such sights to show you.
Bring the motherfucking ruckus.
Fuck you too!
Hi, mate, or kia ora, or how's it going?
See, I'm gonna isolate that, and that'll be the intro. Hi, mate. I like that. No, this is really quite a milestone for me, and I hope you take that as personally as I mean it to be, because I think you are probably the third fan we've had on the show who I found out they were listening to the show, and then I said, okay, like by talking about the show in chat so many times and talking, more personally, I said, I gotta get this person on this show at some point.
Yeah.
And
yeah, hell yeah.
The fun fact about you is that you and I are speaking from the other sides of the planet.
Yoo! Very exciting. Finally.
To introduce you, of course, I have Torus Filth here with me, who has been listening to the podcast for years and has re-listened to it many times, who has also submitted so many pictures posting our merch all over the beautiful country of New Zealand in fun places. You have purchased shirts with single people's faces on them?
Yes. And
who do you own?
Okay. At the moment, I have a Franz mug, Where Am I hoodie.
He's gonna appreciate that.
Oh my god, what else did I buy? A Lotsa Pasta zip bag, like a little Drago bag.
Oh yeah, you keep your bowl in there. That's what its perfect use is for, everyone. Advertise. Buy our little zip bags and put your pieces in there. The cops will never find them.
Shit, what else did I buy? I got
You buy a fuck ton of stickers. I think you've bought a single sticker for like every person.
I think just about every person, and I've got both Captain Death t-shirts, Christmas, Kill Me.
That's right.
Normal. Yeah.
I love that Christmas design.
And I'm actually hoping eventually you'll do like pants or leggings or a skirt or something, and then everything can just be lots of pasta. And then I can just have a whole wardrobe of lots of pasta.
That option is absolutely available to me on that website, and I haven't heard any demand for it. But now that I hear it, I can probably make that happen. So yeah. I can deck you out completely. You are our super fan. Let's just start by calling you. Let's start by calling you that, because you've easily spent the most merch, and I imagine shipping that isn't too bad, because Redbubble is a primarily Australian-based company. I've been working for them since 2007. I've been posting stuff on their website.
Yeah.
Under different aliases. I used to sell t-shirts. I used to make t-shirts for different tea-a-day sites, and I've sold them under a different pseudonym. I never use my real name unless I want people to look at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want people to look at me in these scenarios. Just look at my art and then pay for it. Listen to my podcast. Give me attention.
Exactly.
Validate me.
I also noticed that you put up a 3-ply face mask as well, and I was gutted because I saw that after I ordered other face masks in preparation to come over. Like, I got this amazing Nicolas Cage from Con Air.
Put the kitty down.
But now that I see that, you've even got a Lotsa Pasta mask, I'm like, sweet.
Well, I saw the bandwagon. I literally got an email from Redbubble one day, and it was like, it was like, oh, put your design on a mask. And I was like, how kitschy and stupid. I'm never going to do that. And then, you know, the pandemic continued for more than 2 weeks. And I changed my mind pretty quickly. And I said, you know what, it would be pretty cool to put it on one of those just in case anyone did want one. And I know the quality is good because, like I said, I've been working with them for just about 15 years, and I've never been disappointed. I know that they're like a DTG site, which only graphic designer and editors will understand what that means, but it essentially means one printer prints all colors, and it just kind of lays down everything all at once on like a soft enamel over fabric. And I think that's why the quality is so good, though. Most people would argue that DTG is, like, cheap and fake feeling. And I do know that if you wash them too many times, or if you wash them a certain way, it does start to wear a little bit. But I like the way that looks, a kind of washed out look, a kind of vintagey look, so I don't really give a fuck. And screen printers are the last people who deserve to be hipsters about their industry, so I say, fuck them.
Yeah, and the amount of bogans and punks I know who are in the screen printing industry, oh my goodness. But yeah, no, they're good quality, man. I've slept in them. I've pushed my car out of mud in your merch. I've been caught in the hail. I take it to work. It's got bleach on it. It's already on the way to be like...
They have seen a lot of use. That is honestly the best news I could hear when it comes to the merch, because the only thing I see is Where Am I wearing his own face. And then the other day I showed up and I saw Mr. Skellybones wearing his own face, and I was just like, God damn it, is this gonna be the trend? Like, everyone just buys their own shit.
Hell yes.
I'm okay with it at the end of the day. At least that's a little bit of support.
Yeah, exactly. And I always carry the stickers around with me.
Too. Oh, that's awesome.
I love it. Yeah, I feel like the quality... I don't know if I'm tripping or not, but when I recently jumped onto the merch store on Redbubble, Lotsa Pasta merch on redbubble.com. I'll I'll have the stickers on me, and when I get real drunk or whatever, if I happen to be social, then I'm just like, here, pick a sticker, and I'll put out all the Lotsa Pasta stickers, and, you know, people have taken a Cannibal Siren, and a Korean Hawaiian, and a Tenron, and...
That's hilarious.
Even Disco Dracula, and yeah...
You are spreading the Lotsa Pasta words like a creepy Jehovah's Witness in the streets of New Zealand. That is honestly so great to hear. Like, not only are you a wonderful fan and a beautiful person, but you are also just supporting us in literally every way possible, and I could not be any more grateful for everything that you do. I love the pictures you send whenever you post something somewhere. Like, guys, we have a sticker like outside the filming location for Frighteners in New Zealand that Peter Jackson made like in the 80s. Like I think there's a sticker of me like right outside of that house somewhere.
Yeah, on Holloway Road. Yeah,
that is fucking awesome. I watched that movie when I was 10.
Yeah.
That is so fucking cool. But it also goes to say that, like, that is the power of a podcast, I think. You know, not to sound sappy or romantic, I think there is something beautiful that almost reminds me of, like, the entire message of Spaceship Earth in Walt Disney World, which is the idea of, like, communication and the spreading of information. I feel like I'm being heard for like the first time in my life when it comes to someone I do not know in real life. We have not talked on the phone or in person until this exact moment.
Yeah.
But we have shared many messages, we've shared many pictures, we've talked a lot over the last 3 or 4 years about the podcast and about what we like and what we do with our lives and what we're interested in. And being able to have you on the show is literally a fucking milestone.
Fucking A.
You came out of nowhere, came out of the fucking void, and you were just like, what up? Love your shit. And you've always been high-key excited as fuck about everything that we do. And that means the world to me. And I feel like that is the power of what a podcast is capable of doing. Bringing people together despite space and time itself.
Fucking
We are
A.
talking from is an 8-hour time difference between you and me?
Something like that,
What time-
yeah. 8
what
hours
time
in
is
a
it?
day. It's just about gone noon, which means it's 8 p.m. for you, but the day before. I'm
Exactly.
Sunday,
So
yeah.
what day is it for you?
It is
calendar?
Sunday, high noon. in
Yeah,
New
but like
Zealand.
the third or the fourth or
Oh,
the
the
fifth.
fourth.
Oh, so you are a day ahead. Yes, I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're celebrating America's birthday right now, obviously. And
Oh my god, that's right! Holy shit! May the
I had
fourth
to
be with
subjugate
and
you.
shit.
I'm very happy that you let me subjugate you for just a minute because it was all done condescendingly towards my own country. America's birthday, the 4th of July. That's fucking awesome. For me, it's the night of the 3rd, and it is 8 p.m. And I'm having a nice drink.
Nice.
Having a nice bong rip. I was doing that while we were talking earlier, but I'm only gonna mention it now.
Yeah, I've got my.
Oh man, it's beautiful.
I've got my multiple vapes and my mushrooms looking at me on hand if needed.
Yeah, listen to this, folks. She thought it was necessary. She was nervous, she says, and she took a couple caps before she even got on the call. So she's wild and in the deep.
Oh yeah, I'm rolling in the gold top deep. That's the one.
Can we talk about where you're recording from? Because that's also important, Torus.
Kia ora, cunts. I am coming to you from New Zealand in Wellington, the capital, hailing in the top Wellington rated brothel called Paradise.
Paradise.
Yeah.
All right. So, what people don't know about Torus Filth is that you identify what's your pronoun?
I don't know. She,
That
he, they.
doesn't matter. That doesn't matter
doesn't
over
matter?
there because let me tell you, everyone fucking cares about it over here for some reason. So, Torus Filth is recording from outside a brothel because she claims it has the best Wi-Fi in the area, which, I mean, honestly, I'm all on board with that exact fact. And Torus, you've invited me to come over to the brothel if I'm ever in New Zealand.
For real. Like, when we first
well,
started
Torus,
talking,
you used to work there. That is the start of the story.
I have and always have been for the last decade, or just over a decade, been the cleaner for the brothel and the masseuse for the girls only. Because I've been a massage therapist since I was a kid, well, not really, but it's in my family, so it's a cultural thing. I cannot associate sexual stuff with massage. It's just too
with
much.
your job.
Yeah.
I love the professionalism of it, and if there's anyone who needs a fucking rub down for what they're going through, I can only appreciate that more.
Yeah.
Like the ability, the peace you are probably able to bring so many.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Pennsylvania because I think it is organically one of the creepiest states in the country.
Exactly.
And I laugh when I say that because most of it isn't even real. We're kind of the creepypasta of all of the states, and that's because the actual shit was going on down south. The actual shit was going on in Massachusetts. The actual shit was going on in the West. You know, like name a Pennsylvania serial killer. Like,
oh, yeah. Fuck. I can't think of anyone right now, but I know that
can you? Like, I know there's something somewhere, we can definitely think about it, but we aren't actually a creepy state. We just made it creepy, and I love that about it, because George Romero filmed Night of the Living Dead here. He fucking lived here. He filmed Dawn of the Dead here. The motherfucker was a Pittsburgh native, and he wanted to film here. He filmed all over the fucking state, and that is the zombie origin of the country. Now, I know the witches are rocking over there in Salem. I have yet to be over there. It is on my bucket list, just like New Zealand is on my bucket list. And I have no doubt I will be in both of those places somewhere in at least the next 10 years. And it doesn't even stop there, though. Like, the witches have Salem, but that's all that's going on in Salem. Salem isn't actually a very spooky area. It's just known for a lot of spooky shit. Like, the scariest thing we have in Pennsylvania is, like, Gettysburg, which is, like, definitely a big fucking deal, historically speaking, with the wars that went on there. The ghosts of those civil wars, essentially. But it's more about what gets done here and what comes out of here, because I believe even special effects artist Greg Nicotero is from Pennsylvania, and he's worked on anything from Walking Dead to Creepshow. Like, he worked under Tom Savini, and Savini, of course, started in I believe either Pennsylvania or New Jersey, because he was working on Friday the 13th, Creepshow, like anything George Romero ended up doing later.
Right.
The Blob was filmed here. Both 55 and I believe 88.
Oh my gosh, cool.
And that theater is only an hour away from where I live, and I've actually been in there. And I've watched a production of Rocky Horror Picture Show in there, and it's fucking gnarly knowing the history of where you're at and what's going on. And like I mentioned earlier, we are only, I believe, like a 2-hour drive from where all the Friday the 13th movies were filmed, over in New Jersey. And then the last fun fact I can think of when it comes to our beloved state is we're also the home to M. Night Shyamalan, and he loves to film in the rural and different area districts of Philadelphia. Nice. He's a Philly native, and you could hear even references to my alma mater where I went to college, Temple University, being mentioned in his literal movies. Like, the one kid even talks about it in Unbreakable. He filmed a lot of his best stuff in this area, and by that I mean Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, Village, Signs. And I got to meet him at a con once. I got to talk to him for a little bit, and this was all well before he did Glass or Split, I think. And and after he had taken a dive in the industry for so many fucking years, and he's just such a humble guy. He's so down to earth and so nice to talk to. It's just, why the fuck did you make The Last Airbender?
I know.
You know, that's really all it comes down to. It's like I love him and I love everything he's done, minus a couple things, and then the top of that list is I hate you for making The Last Airbender. I love you for, I don't know, Lady in the Water, Signs, Sixth Sense, you know, everything I mentioned before. Yeah. But I hate you because of The Last Airbender, and I think that's the worst thing he's ever done. I wasn't a fan of The Visit. I know a lot of people called that like a return to form for him, but I wasn't on board with that.
No, I wasn't
the last
either.
act is good. It never quite went as far as I wanted it to, and that's probably a product of my time, because I wanted it to be more like funny games. Like I wanted them to like fucking kill these kids, and I knew that wasn't gonna happen. So it was like no, the annoying little brother character isn't gonna go missing. This is an M. Night Shyamalan movie, not a fucking art house horror.
Yeah.
You're over there in New Zealand, and you have the home of a bunch of my favorite horror movies, and I would say favorite movies in general, because all the Lord of the Rings movies were also filmed over there, and those movies are fucking legendary.
Oh my gosh, yes. So
what's your connection to what your country has done for the film industry?
Not too much. So I used to live in Miramar, which is where two of the big Weta studios are. So this dinky little flat I was in was near one where they had to do a lot of big live action scenes. So I think it was, oh my gosh, maybe when they were filming something for the second or the third one, and until maybe from like 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. was take after take after take of warriors screaming and cheering.
That is fucking awesome.
And so like we just like kept away, because we were literally just like a few meters away, and just hearing all these people going, yeah! It's like, oh my god, yes, we get it, fuck.
I can imagine how annoying that is, but it also sounds really exciting.
It was, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, and the whole area became a lot more expensive because Peter Jackson fixed up the roads so that all his people could get to work properly. But in saying that, there was one time where someone was running late and smashed into the back of a bus while the driver was out there, and
fuck.
Yeah, so just kind of like watching all the reactions from having things being filmed in that whole area, and real estate going up and all that jazz. I used to massage a dude who was like the props manager or warehouse manager for Weta, and so
wow.
When I'd go and give him and his missus a massage, I'd get to hear all about the cool stuff he saw in one of Peter Jackson's big warehouses when he needed things for like a local festival or another movie coming up. And yeah, this guy is pretty much breaking his back trying to meet the demands of Peter Jackson and move all these fucking heavy set things around, and hearing all the drama and gossip of all these other international executive producers being coked out and people getting fired, and oh my god, and like people deciding they needed this thing for oh my god, what movie was it? The anime one. Hang on a second. Was it Akira? No. Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell. All the dramas, yes. Because that was filmed a few meters behind me in the city.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've always just kind of been on the outskirts. I almost auditioned for one of the Avatar movies, but life happened, and yeah, so it's just kind of been there.
You totally could have done it.
Yeah, I know, but life took me a different way, unfortunately. I love acting.
Oh, it happens.
But I haven't done it in a while. The closest
you'll fit in with us. That's all of our backgrounds. We've all acted at some point in something.
Yeah.
I've been a huge fan of Peter Jackson ever since I was a kid, obviously, when I started talking about Frighteners earlier. I would consider that a movie not a lot of people saw, but it was near like the decline of Michael J. Fox's acting career, kind of when he was, giving up a little bit because of Parkinson's. But I remember going back and watching Bad Taste when I was a teenager, and really enjoying it. A buddy of mine in 2000 and I think like 12 told me about Meet the Feebles, which has stuck in my mind for all time and space because I've never seen puppets do anything what they do in that movie.
Yeah. You just reminded me. I went to a wedding where Bad Taste was filmed. That was
for
random.
real?
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Fun facts. Like I said, Frighteners, Lord of the Rings, everything he's known for, King Kong, Hobbit, like, I'm a fan of all of it. I have not disliked anything he's done. Dead Alive is one of the quotable, or Brain Dead as it might be called over there.
Yeah.
Literally one of the most fun horror movies ever made.
Right. Yeah. I remember driving past one of his earlier houses back in the 90s, and yeah, Peter Jackson's always been a staple, and he's currently a big voice in trying to help an area, a suburb in the area, to not be gentrified. We all want to keep it the way that we know it and preserve as much of our land as possible.
Oh, he's all about preservation. I believe one of his most recent contributions to the world, I'll say, is he re-edited footage from World War II.
Yes, he loves all his war stuff. Oh my god, that's the other stuff I hear all about in his hut warehouses, all the war memorabilia stuff he's got, and he brings them out whenever there's like an Anzac Day parade. Oh wait, Anzac is our Memorial Day, kind of. It's recognizing our soldiers who fought in World War One.
Yeah.
So he's got a ton of that stuff that he'll like loan out for parades and whatnot.
So you would say your stance and your country's stance is we love Peter Jackson.
Yeah, pretty much. Just kind of, I don't know, there's this weird New Zealand thing of like the younger ones are obviously, you know, when we had the red carpet for the first Lord of the Rings, everyone was all about it. There's always the oldie goldies that will like have something to say negative about Peter Jackson, but he's actually done a lot for our country, and and it's kind of laid the groundwork for other people to shine through, like Flight of the Conchords and
fucking love Jermaine Clement.
Yeah, and even What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, that was all
right,
filmed
and Taika. We didn't talk about Taika either. Fucking love Taika.
Yeah, so that was all filmed in Wellington, so that's really, like, it's always cute to see, you know, that movie, and then you're like, I walked there, that's where paradise is, and
I love that show, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Everything, I've actually seen everything Taika's done, and I love that he became what he is today, that he got popular, you know, because even with something as simple as Boy, you're just like, wow, this guy has such a flair, and then you see his acting in a movie like that as well.
Exactly.
And you're just like, wow, this guy is fucking talented.
Yeah. Our funding for Pacifica / Māori media isn't actually that bad. Like, you know, we've got the radio stations, and there's a whole Māori channel, and there is some give to allow more Indigenous people to be able to create. So hopefully we definitely see more of that, because fuck, they're funny.
Yes, they really are. And I hope this isn't too touristy of a conversation for you, just because you are literally the first person from New Zealand I've ever spoken to. I feel like I have to get it all out of the way before we can just have a normal conversation about shit.
Yeah, fair. Fair.
I love the sense of humor, the levity your country kind of exudes. I think that's part of the appeal of my wanting to go over there, on top of the fanboy aspect of going over there and just seeing everything.
Yeah, man.
I just like looking at like vistas, you know, landscapes, and I just know that New Zealand has some beautiful fucking like mountains and
Oh my god, yes.
valleys,
Yeah.
wilderness.
When I lost my shit, I like left the city and went out to the Wops, and it's like full-on tiny dirt roads, almost crashing into oncoming cars if you're not paying attention. But once you hit a peak and it's like either the sun's setting or the sun's just rising, holy shit, like it's Jurassic Park times 1,000. It's so beautiful. Like, where the fuck are the dinosaurs? Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and knowing that was filmed in like Costa Rica and Hawaii, both of those places are on my bucket lists too. My mother has been to both locations and taken pictures at both of those places and been like, "Hey, does this look familiar?" And it's like literally one of the trees from Jurassic Park that is still there, and you're just like,
cool.
"Oh, God damn it, I know exactly what scene that is." But yeah, I really appreciate you letting me just fanboy for a second, and we also just it's still relevant because we are talking about the kind of horror backbone of where both of us live, but now it gets a little bit more personal. How did you stumble across Lotsa Pasta?
So I think back in 2016 I was grieving a death and got addicted to no sleep and just like staying up all night reading it, and then it got to the point where it was like my eyeballs they just cannot do this, and I had just started Left Right Game. And I was like, surely somebody out there has done an audio of this. And I just trawled all the podcasts and internets until I found Lotsa Pasta. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And then just started listening to the first of the Left Right series. And I was like, yes, actually, this is exactly what I want. And then just downloaded it and just took off from there. And then jumped straight to episode 1. And just... Oh my god.
I cannot begin to talk enough about Left Right Game. Every time I see Tenron in person, I like give him a hug, and I'm like, dude, that was one of the best things I've ever recorded. that was such a journey that he and I went on together. I'm doing something very similarly with Django right now, where it feels very, he and I are stuck in a situation and going through it together. Oh shit, by the time this episode comes out, it'll already have happened.
Nice.
I am of course talking about Sin Eater, who, Torus Filth had not had the opportunity to listen to this episode yet, or listen to this series. It's going to be a 4-parter, but Sin Eater is such a fun fucking story, and for me, the idea of us doing different voices and capturing different characters has never been more evident than Left Right Game, so that means I am speaking in volumes to a new thing we've done this season. It's definitely my favorite thing since Left Right Game, and when I do think about introducing people to the show and trying to give them something I think they can enjoy, if I don't give them like a really good single episode,
right,
and it's hard to necessarily think of them now, I would probably give something like, I don't know, Pen Pal, maybe one of the Whistlers episodes, Mr. Bears maybe. The Mayhem Mountain with Where Am I? Maybe one of Where Am I's earlier episodes. His first 3 episodes are fucking gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I were to give someone a series that I knew they would get stuck on and I knew they would enjoy, I would give them Left Right Game. And I think that again speaks volumes to the way it was written, to the way it was done, to the acting that we did during listening to it, and just how fucking focused we were and how much we enjoyed the story. So I'm glad that was the first thing you found. That is in what I would consider our 3rd season. I would say that was like a peak for season 3, which is what I'm going to consider episode 101 to like 150. It's right there in the middle, and it fucking stands out because it's I believe it's 5 parts.
Something like that, yeah.
Each of them are 2 hours apiece, 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. Like, you and Teneron have a really good, podcasting friendship, and it just definitely comes through the story. And, when Teneron's involved, it's usually a lot less chaotic, and you're able to concentrate on the story, and it fucking works. But in saying that, I also love the chaotic episodes, like with Frowns and Harold Heavy Hands, and... but also
you like Harold Heavy Hands' episodes? We've never talked about that. You never said that.
Now that I'm like, the 6th time listening through all the episodes now, like, yeah, there's like some guests that'll just like at first don't grab me, but like the 4th time listening through, I'm like, actually, yeah, I can jive with that. But yeah, but also.
Point one out, which is one you've listened to recently that you thought was shit in the beginning, but now you like it.
I don't know if it's specifically Harold Heavy Hands, but to be honest, the ones where you're not reading a story, it took me a while to get used to Scutch McGee.
Okay.
And
Scutch and I just talk, yeah. I used to work right next to him, and we would just talk all day. It was such a... We'd just be using our hands, not using our eyes to do, like, anything, and we'd just be able to, like, just talk while we were, like, packing shit. So it was, like, the easiest job I ever had, like, sorting boxes and running machines with a guy who will talk about literally anything. So any conversation we've had, aliens, the dead, the spirits, the afterlife, the fucking void, we've talked about everything together, and that's carried over in our episodes together. We get carried away very easily talking about anything.
Yeah, but for me to fangirl for a moment, like, considering I started listening when I was like at one of my many lowest points in my life, it's kind of like Lotsa Pasta has been this like anchor to the real world in some sense, if that kind of makes sense. So
I love that.
Yeah, so basically
we were able to bring you smiles.
Yeah.
We were able to give you smiles at a time where you didn't want to smile.
Exactly. And just like, or just needing to have some other human voices so I could just lie in bed.
Absolutely.
And just not, and I'm not feeling anything, but I'm able to just have like Lotsa Pasta, last podcast, like yammer away at me, and it just, and a grounding kind of anchor.
I listen to Last Podcast every day on the way to work, and it's always just something about my morning routine. It gets me up in the morning, I'd say, because I'm a stereotypical guy. I immediately wake up, get out of bed, and go to work.
Yeah.
And in that morning process, I need entertainment. I need to be stimulated, or else I'm going to fall back asleep. And because I don't drink coffee or anything, I just wake the fuck up.
Oh
and
my God.
I immediately get my phone, and I hand my entire brain over on a silver platter to Last Podcast. And that is how I spend every morning. I just consume all of their useless information that I find incredibly entertaining. Obviously, the inspiration for this show came from the creepypasta episodes of that show, because I have been a lifelong fan of Last Podcast. I was there for their first tour I
Amazing.
didn't get to go to any of the Creek in the Cave shows back in the day in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's because I was too young and too broke.
Yeah.
And but I did hit them on their first tour when they were only able to go to like the tri-state area, and
Yeah.
I got them in Philadelphia, where they were literally telling stories from like 5 feet away from us, and we were all just standing around them. And
Oh my god.
and it was just
That's
it was
so
so
cool.
great, and I've been able to have drinks with at least Ben each time. and it's so great, because every time I see him, I look in his eyes and I go, this guy doesn't remember me at all. But then I tell him a story of something he did, and he goes, I remember you. And I go, no, you don't, but that's so cool that you remember this story. Because he's always done something, and I've been, like, there for it.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But anyway,
huge fan of Ben Kissel. But yeah, so thanks for letting me be a huge fan and even responding back to me and putting out content.
I'm very, well, you're welcome, but go fuck yourself. I will, I think the reason I did the show is because I stopped acting a long time ago, but I've always felt like reading stories and kind of doing voices was something I always enjoyed. I would love to be a voice actor. You know, if I were ever offered like a role in an animated movie, I would give it my all, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I even have a family member. I'm related to a guy who does voices in like video games and movies and shit.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him at like any family reunion because he's probably way too fucking busy. But
Yeah.
I've told myself I'm gonna go to like a con and walk up to him and be like, yo, you're like my second uncle on my dad's side. Fucking teach me how you do what you do, because I want to do it. Like, he's been in Marvel movies. He's done voices on fucking like Overwatch. Like, he's fucking crazy. And
Fuck yeah.
anyway, I wanted to do the podcast because, one, I was fucking bored, and two, I had all these friends around me who I view as talented, funny, original, and just so deserving of a spotlight just to be them.
Exactly.
And like when I think of that, I think of like Frowns and Django and Terry, and Disco Dracula, in particularly back in the day, and the conversations we were able to have and the experiences we were able to have early on, I'd say first 2 seasons, the first 100 episodes, were the most organic this show will ever be, because now there are expectations, there are limits to be met, there are things to do. It's turned into a little bit more of a thing for us.
Yes.
And I have to schedule it with my friends now because they're not as organic, we're not as young, we're not as free.
Exactly.
A lot of us have lives that are going in different directions, hence why people have stopped coming on the show at certain points. You know, I'm thinking of Disco Dracula and Boo Berry and Bunch of Baby Ducks. Like, our lives just went in different directions. And it doesn't mean we don't talk, it just means that they're not on the show anymore, and that doesn't mean that their older episodes are going anywhere. They happened, they're good, go back and listen to them. At this point, there has never really truly been like a huge amount of bad blood. But I still want people to be excited about what we are doing and where we are going. Hence, you being here. You are our our biggest fan. And after having Glitch Blob on, who was, I would say, the first fan that we've ever had on, because he was just a guy who reached out to us and just said, hey, like, I have a YouTube where I do stuff, we should collaborate at some point. And I was like, absolutely. And then I turned around and did that to Ramses. But the second fan I'd say I had on was our most recent addition, who you haven't seen yet. her name is Midnight Bride.
Cool.
And she is a friend of mine who has been a friend of mine for the last 10 years, but I didn't know she was like listening to the podcast until I would say a year or two ago, which really surprised me, and she told me she liked it a lot, and I know that she also has experience, and I think she's very sweet and very kind and has a very distinct voice, so I wanted to have her on the show, and she was recently on an episode.
More females of the
more
Lotsa Pasta
females,
crew.
Right. We have Cannibal Siren, Alley Cat, DSL Daisy, Midnight Bride, and now Torus Filth. We've rounded it out, and I would say you guys are now rocking a sixth of the show's cast.
Yee! Fuck yeah! Awesome.
I think for all of our 5 girls, we have 6 other guys. but that's okay. I love having you here, and I liked having Midnight Bride on as well. I'm sure both you guys are going to be on more as we move forward. I've already talked to DSL Daisy about coming back, and as you guys know, Alley Cat just comes on whenever we have other people, other situations going on. But Cannibal Siren and I are doing something huge. I feel like that's going to be the closing out of this next section. As I've said before, the word of this season is inconsistency, because there are going to be some weeks where I do podcast, and maybe we get through a series, or we get through a certain amount of solo episodes with different people, and then I'm going to stop and put stuff out on the YouTube, and then when that's done, I'm going to put more stuff out on the podcast. So expectations should be holstered for a little bit. I feel like after doing the 200th special, Cabin in the Woods, Chaos in the Woods, I'm allowed to take a break this season a little bit. But that doesn't mean the content is gonna be sacrificed because of that break. What I mean by that is I want to leverage the amount of time I'm putting in on the podcast with the same amount of time that I can also put into the YouTube to get more shit up there, because YouTube is meant for viewing. It is meant for watching. Having a podcast exist on the YouTube is really only for people who work all day and are allowed to listen to YouTube but maybe don't have access to other things. Our views on YouTube when it's just the podcast should not be relegated to any of my perception about how the stuff we post for watching purposes should be on there. But another reason the word is inconsistency is because we're doing a lot of different shit this season and the upcoming season. We're going to be doing, which at this point it would have already come out, movie commentaries, where essentially you put on a movie and then you start our audio track when we tell you to, and then you essentially watch the movie with us as we just like joke and make fun of it as it goes on, or maybe tell a story.
Fuck yeah.
So, that's going to be another thing we do. We have an interview coming up, which is just going to be talking to someone who we admire for like an episode. We might even read something with them. I leave that ball in their court, to use a sports metaphor that I don't understand. I think what we're doing today is a huge part of season 4 or 5 that we're at right now. But we are also like there's a lot of crazy shit happening, and a lot more crazy shit that's gotta happen.
I'm excited for it all.
So yeah.
Just the chaotic, crazy shit all over my ears and face. I don't know.
I was drinking when you said that. Oh shit. I almost fucking spat.
I'm ready for it all, Captain. That's all I'm trying to say.
So, we're of course, we've done a lot of talking. I just wanted to give you the time, introduce you, get you acquainted. The last thing I want you to be is nervous about anything we're doing, because that's the last thing this show is, which is professional. And I'm gonna take a huge bong rip, and then we're gonna talk about.
I just ate
what we're reading here today.
I just ate 2 more gold caps, so yeah, I can bring it on.
Hell yeah. Yeah, my new bong. It has a Rick and Morty print on it.
Oh yeah, nice.
So I have to name all of my pieces. I name all of my pieces based off of whatever fictional material they remind me of, and naturally I had to name this character from Rick and Morty, so I called it Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Yes!
And whenever I take a hit, I always go like, hooey!
Love it.
That's a good rip you just took, huh? Gee golly willikers. Oh, shit. Okay. So,
right.
This is Lotsa Pasta. This is episode, what is that? 218.
Holy shit! Yes, good numbers.
And I'm here with Torus Filth, who we've been conversing with and talking at for the last 50-some minutes.
Kia ora, cuz.
And oh man, when I asked her what she wanted to read today, I feel like we were stuck at a crossroads because we couldn't necessarily come up with what direction. She knows, obviously, from listening to the show, probably more than anyone on this planet. She wasn't sure what direction she wanted to go in, and we kept thinking like one longer story would probably be good. I don't know if we needed to do like a bunch of shorter stories, but this is something new I want to do. I want to do 2 like medium-sized stories. It's been a while since we've had an episode like this. I believe I've done this with Where Am I? Or Sofa King maybe, but we're gonna read two hardier stories. They're definitely longer than just a couple pages, but we're gonna read 2 of them, and I believe one of them is from No Sleep, and one of them is from Unsettling Stories, which both of them I'm very excited to read because I've heard good things about them. And I've had them on my list for a very long time. So I think let me take another look at this real quick. It's pretty much point for point. Do you want to read the first one?
I'm just having a quick look. Yeah, sure. Fuck it.
And when I say read, I mean we can switch off at any point. You could do page counts. You could take the entire thing if you're feeling it. I really don't care. You tell me. Feel free to popcorn whenever you want to give it to someone else.
Yep, sweet as. Yeah, I'll just get started and see how we go. Go with the flow.
Absolutely. So, the first story we're going to be reading today is, I think it's a fun one. It's called Unknown Cargo, and this one is from Reddit No Sleep, and I like the idea of this one, because it's like something that travels across the world, like going to like a new place. You're never sure where you're going to show up or what even is in the box. And I feel like that's reminiscent of our connection as 2 people, because you're across the fucking world, and I send my shit out into the subspace and you collect it. And I feel like this is a fun like first story for us to both dive into. What is your first thought when you see the words Unknown Cargo?
It immediately makes me think of Dracula because he was unknown cargo.
Oh, fuck yeah! That's gnarly. All right, good first thought.
Yeah, I see something about a wave, and so that probably means shipping, and for some reason that makes me think of the series that was like the Woods one, but it's the deep sea diving horror one that you read with, I think it was Django ages ago.
Oh yeah.
From the title.
Oh yeah. That was a good series. That was the deep sea diver.
That's the one.
The what was it fucking called?
God
It had one of those Reddit no sleep titles of like, I am a diver for the blah blah blah, and this is my thing, and I am telling a story. Like,
exactly.
You know, there are two sides to no sleep. There are posts like that, and then posts like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Unknown Cargo, Reddit no sleep, and I'm gonna let Torus Filth just take this one away.
Mean. All right. Unknown Cargo. In the early 90s, I was a deckhand on a ship that frequented the southern half of the globe. We mainly transported goods, occasionally passengers, and sometimes things that we weren't allowed to see. Once in a while, we'd see something we weren't supposed to. The guy who got me the job lost his life in one such incident. A large wave had rolled our ship hard to the port side and caused our below-deck cargo to shift violently. The strapping holding down a particularly heavy box gave under the strain and let the box go. It slid into the wall, revealing a large quantity of ivory and other illicit goods.
Ooh, illicit goods.
He left the hold as soon as he saw what it was, but he was found dead later that same day, crushed by another loose box. They neglected to mention that he was also shot in the head in the official report. This was one of the incidents that made me quit. One, not the what?
He's implying one of the incident, not the incident that made him quit.
The last time I set foot on that ship was 1993.
That's a long ass fucking time ago.
Oh man, Kurt Cobain and Biggie Smalls were still alive.
Oh shit.
Oh man, that was a good year. Anyway, the long and short of our journey is that we headed from Buenos Aires, Argentina, to Puerto Montt, Chile. It was easier to sail around Cape Horn than it was to find a reliable passage through the Andes. I don't know much about the client, but he hired our ship and paid us a fat bonus so that he could fill out the paperwork instead of us. What a good cunt. This entails certain risks when entering port cities, but it gave our client a greater degree of anonymity.
Anonymity.
That's the one, G. Thanks. Some people pay quite well for that.
Yes.
The seas around Cape Horn can be some of the most treacherous on the planet. They're certainly the worst I've ever seen. Due to the fact that there is so little land and far south the winds can whip around nearly the entire planet past 40 degrees south, creating the roaring 40s, the furious 50s, and the screaming 60s.
Hell yeah. Rock and roll.
These sound like neat names to most people. To me, they mean we're in for a rough ride. Cape Horn forces ships to drop below 56 degrees south. The further south you go, the worse the winds can get.
I'm glad he's explaining these things, because I have no fucking idea what
I don't know. We're aiming
I see a lot of numbers and I immediately get scared. I'm like, oh no. I have to do math now.
We were aiming for a course around 56.5 degrees south. Cool, bro. This put us a little further offshore, hopefully out of reach of anyone who would want to inspect/steal our cargo, yet still close enough to land that we'd have a chance to make it if a storm hit hard and fast. The journey was uneventful until we approached the Cape. My job on the ship was the one that everyone can associate with. I was the cook. I didn't have any particular area of expertise aside from a friend, since deceased, who had told them that I made the best food out of the crappiest ingredients and that I wouldn't rat them out. Hey, that sounds like me.
I didn't want to be offensive, but I was like, Torus, is this like your first job? Like, is this what you were doing like 10 years ago?
Oh, 10 years ago I was not a very good cook to the point that I even got scurvy, but that's a whole other story.
That's beautiful.
I am a good cook, and I had no plans on ratting out a less than noble captain or crew who would ultimately kill me if I did so. We were about 50 miles off the shore on the night we'd be passing the Cape when things got odd.
Question mark?
I don't suppose that's quite right. They went straight stupid? What? They went straight stupid? Stupid straight? What?
They went straight stupid. I guess it's a slang I understand. Maybe not you.
Yeah, that's a little weird, man.
They went straight stupid. It just means like no holds barred, no stopping. They didn't degrade into stupidness. They went from being smart people to stupid people like overnight.
Straight on into Stupidville. Gotcha. It was my last voyage for a good reason. Things I can't rightly explain began to happen. Well, you better explain it, jeez.
I hope so.
When you're at home and something happens inside your house, such as a fire, you leave. You go outside and you watch the thing burn down, or you see if you can put it out. That's not really an option at sea. You put the fire out or you jump ship and risk death. The fires we had to put out weren't the kind I'm used to. It was winter and the winds were bad as soon as we passed 40 degrees south. They got worse the entire way down. There were 13 of us on the ship, a horrible number, but no one had yet been hired to replace my buddy. I don't actually know any of the real names of my fellow crewmates, nor did they know mine. That being said, I'm not willing to risk naming them as I knew them, lest they find me. I'll refer to the captain as Carl. He was in his mid-50s and was the only person still on board who I really got along with. The pay was good.
You bet your ass I'm voicing Carl if he comes across.
Yes, please. He'd often ask me to take watches late at night as I had no other real obligations at that time, unless it was very early, like 4 to 5 a.m. ship time. On the night we passed the Cape, I was on one such watch around 8 p.m. It had been dark for over 2 hours, and since it was winter, I knew there was a real threat of icebergs in this area. I spotted the first almost immediately and alerted the mate who was in the wheelhouse. I honestly don't remember which one it was because immediately I saw more and more icebergs and we realized that we had stumbled into an ice flow. This kind of phenomenon didn't regularly occur this close to the Cape, but it had happened in the past. The only problem was that we'd need to go shallower or deeper to avoid it. We went deeper.
Deeper.
Once we were a few miles further out than the flow, the wind picked up in a bad way. I couldn't go outside anymore for fear of being blown overboard. The waves were in excess of 30 feet, and even some of those crew, those still awake, were starting to feel sick. Our ship was fairly sizable, 400 feet, but 30-foot seas are nothing to be trifled with. My inside watch path took me to the forward part of the ship, away from the crew quarters and around the hold. Oh my god, he describes a lot of stuff. Okay, we had a set route for this, and I always followed it to a T, never lingering in the hold lest I see something that I wasn't supposed to. Well, this time it didn't really matter. Just before I got to the hold, I heard an alarm klaxon that I'd only heard twice before. It was damn near blew my eardrums, but it meant that there was a massive wave approaching. I grabbed the railing and held on, expecting a large breaker or something of the like. I could suddenly feel the bow of the ship begin to rise, and I felt myself being pulled backwards down the long corridor I had just walked. I began to worry when it just kept going up. Finally, mercifully, the wave broke and our ship crashed down and through it. I wasn't on deck to see, but I had imagined we were briefly partially submerged. The impact was a relief, but nonetheless threw me to the ground. When I got up, I was dizzy. I'd hit I'd hit the railing and the ground pretty hard and could see a small bit of crimson on the ground where I'd lain. I'd cut the right side of my head. Not bad, but it bled nonetheless. That's when I first saw something. It was standing at the end of the hallway that led to the deck of the ship. It looked like a person, and I expected them to come help me up and make sure I was okay. The
It's just Slender Man trying to enjoy like a nice cruise.
That's exactly what I'm picturing.
He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and he's wondering why this guy's on the ground.
The crew may have not been all buddy-buddy, but you want your fellow crewmates to make the journey, if nothing else, so that you don't have to do extra work. I was still dizzy and a little woozy, but I could clearly see a figure open one of the outside doors and calmly step onto the deck. This couldn't be happening. No one had any reason to go outside. None. Everything we needed to do, adjustments to the ship, checking cargo, etc., could be done via the passageways inside the ship. Our ship had a two-way intercom system. I knew the nearest speaker was in the hold, so I reluctantly entered to let the mate at the helm know that one of the crew was outside and apparently had a death wish. When I entered the hold, I noticed that it was eerily empty. Then I recalled that our current client had contracted us to haul only his cargo. I made for the intercom only to stop dead in my tracks a few feet from it. The cargo had consisted of one large cargo container, the kind that can be loaded onto a flatbed truck. Only it had broken free of its moorings and slammed into the heavy wall we all referred to as the breaker. It was a very thick wall designed to protect the aft compartment from yielding in the event the cargo became dislodged, as it had today. The container had split and was awkwardly crumpled against the breaker. I wasn't about to witness precious gold spill onto the floor, followed shortly by my own blood if our client had anything to say about it, and was ready to run when I realized the container was empty. I could see all the way to the back of the container, and there was nothing inside at all.
I think you might be onto something with your initial Dracula comment.
I ran to the intercom and screamed that someone had gone outside and went to leave the room when something about the container caught my eye. There were crosses painted all over it. It's Dracula. It's fucking Dracula. Oh my god. Okay. There were crosses painted all over it. Every side had at least one cross on it, and the doors had one apiece. I stepped just a little bit closer to examine it, and I noticed the interior. It was covered in claw marks. The hinges of the doors on the inside had nearly been clawed clean off, and there were deep gouges in the heavy metal that looked almost like someone had made them with a torch. Ooh, maybe it's a werewolf? A vampire werewolf. I don't know. My first thought was that we were hauling some sort of big cat to a millionaire for his personal pet collection, until I realized how foolish it was to think that a cat could claw through metal. Suddenly, I heard the alarm klaxon for the second time in so many minutes and realized that I needed to brace myself in a hurry. I ran for the door and the railing, but I was too late. This wave didn't hit us straight on. Whoever was in the wheelhouse hadn't seen it coming and must have done his best to turn us into it, but failed. The ship listed hard to the port side. I hit the floor like a bug on a windshield and rolled about 20 feet. I heard the captain calling over the intercom that we had taken water in one of our aft compartments. This had happened in the past, and it wasn't all that surprising, but the fact that the captain had taken over the ship this late at night, it was now after 11 p.m, meant we were in pretty bad shape. I took a quick stock of my surroundings and our emergency protocol for situations such as these and realized something. I was completely alone. No one else on the ship would be within 100 yards of my current location.
Okay, I do have something to say.
Yes?
I thought this guy was a cook.
Right?
Why is he doing so much work? Shouldn't you be making someone a sandwich?
Yeah. The captain's probably hungry right about now. Jeez, mate.
I am.
Oh my gosh. He's the MacGyver of the ship. He's the cook and whatever else this is.
All around fuck boy.
Holy moly. That's when I heard the wind howling louder than I'd ever heard it before.
Was it the wind? Or was it a werewolf vampire fanboy?
Oh my gosh. Somewhere nearby there was something open to the outside. I ran from the cargo hold and noticed the door that I had seen the person walk out of was suddenly open again. I ran down the hall and grabbed the door to shut it, but found it incredibly hot. The door handle burnt through my gloves and caused them to briefly smoke. I ripped my jacket off and used it to turn the heavy-duty handle and finally seal the door. Over 3 inches of water now coated the floor. It would drain, but I was still left with the uncomforting thought that there was some person or people on board that I probably wasn't supposed to know about, and he or she was now loose. Okay. I decided to take the long way around the hold to avoid any unnecessary meetings with our guests. This took me to the extreme bow of the ship. It was a somewhat cramped passageway that I'd only used 2 or 3 times prior, but we all knew about it. This passage was our way of avoiding the hold at all costs. It had only 2 doors and didn't connect directly to the hold. Very near the turning point where the path doubled back, I looked out one of the portholes and could see the worst seas I'd ever been in. It was almost as if higher powers were trying to sink our ship. I stared out the window, watching the waves grow larger and larger, almost as if in a trance, for about 15 minutes before I realized how long I'd been standing there. Then I saw a trifecta of monster waves rushing at our ship from 3 different directions. From what I could see, there was a 30... What's the apostrophe for? 30 foot?
Yes.
From what I could see, there was a 30-foot or better wave approaching each side of the ship, and a monster of at least 50 feet coming at us straight on. I heard that massive alarm klaxon again, and this time there was going to be an announcement with it.
Oh, hold shit, yeah. Wait, Captain Carl.
Come on, Captain
Hold
Carl.
on, boys. This is gonna be bad.
The waves didn't hit us all at the same time, if that was some sort of mercy. The port wave struck first and pushed us into the starboard wave, which actually worked to right the vessel somewhat. The captain didn't mess around. He was good at his job. The last wave was the biggest I've ever seen. If I hadn't been there to see it, I'd never have believed it. There was probably a 5-second break before it hit us and hit us hard. I was already well braced, thankfully, but I could hear metal being wrenched and sheared on deck. There was going to be damage. I looked up and out the window again, only to see our onboard crane rushing towards us. I suddenly felt the temperature around me rise sharply before the crane hit the window. Everything went black. I woke up on the floor about 20 feet from a gaping wound in the front of the ship. The main crane had broken free from its base and gouged a hole at least 10 feet tall in the hull. I couldn't see below my deck to see its true depth. I could feel the warmth escaping the hallway through the opening and realized that while the outside temperature was in the low 30s, the interior temperature had to have been around over 100 degrees Fahrenheit when the crane struck. The power had gone out all around me. I could only hope it was a localized event. If the ship lost power, then we'd flounder in short order in these seas. Oh my gosh, this guy, this person, this author is very, very, very descriptive.
You're doing a very good job.
Thank you. I'm glad I didn't eat any more mushrooms than I had to. That's all I gotta say. I suddenly had the unsettling feeling that I was not alone. I jumped to my feet and felt my way along the wall opposite the way I'd come. Suddenly, I felt the temperature rise again, and my mind immediately went to fire. Fire on the ship was bad. Fire bad! I knew that. This was worse. I made the mistake of looking back, and I could see a dark figure on the other side of the crane wreckage that was completely cloaked in fire. But this fire shed no light. It only created heat. I took a step back, and suddenly the area in front of me exploded with heat. The figure stood directly in front of me. It was at least 7 feet tall. It didn't walk like a person, despite the incredible heat. I was completely frozen. Another massive wave shook me from my stupor, and I ran. I ran like I had never run before, but I could still feel the heat right behind me. I finally reached the front commons of the ship and saw that the rest of the ship still had power.
Do you think it's a demon? Is that too much of a stretch? The monsterish features, the claw marks, the heat.
Yeah, some kind of
a hellfire thing.
Yeah, some kind of hellfire daemon.
Something from Yu-Gi-Oh.
To be honest, I've never watched Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, it's fucking stupid. It didn't even make sense for the joke. Something out of like Devil May Cry or something.
Have you ever seen Yorotsuki Doji?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm like starting to think it's some kind of like tentacle porn sex demon.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay.
From the fire realm or something. I don't know.
Let's go with that.
Right. I finally reached the front commons of the ship and saw that the rest of the ship still had power. I also saw there were deep scorch marks in my jacket. Oh, damn. I looked behind me through the heavy door leading to the hold and didn't see anything but black. I needed to alert the captain. As if the storm wasn't bad enough, our cargo didn't seem to be of this world. I had no intention of returning to the hold area, so I'd be using the galley intercom to reach the captain. I went down the first flight of stairs I could find and made a straight line for the galley. About halfway there, the power flickered. The emergency lights were all floor-based and offered very little help except that I wouldn't run full speed into a wall. As I turned the last corner before the galley, the power went out completely. The emergency lights... Huh?
I said, fuck.
Oh, yeah. The emergency lights gave off the orange glow and illuminated the bottom foot or so of the path. Once my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I looked down to the galley, and to my horror, I saw a large dark figure pause, then enter the galley through the exact door I was headed to. I had no wish to run into what or whoever that was, but I didn't really have much of a choice. The bow of the ship was heavily damaged, and if we took too many waves through that gaping wound, we'd eventually begin to flood. Forgetting the fact that there was something on board that I couldn't rightly explain.
I really enjoy this story. I think, yes, he is being a tad too descriptive because it's not like I'm mathematically drawing a blueprint of this ship like right now. But I enjoy the ambiguity when it comes to the monster or whatever we're dealing with.
Same.
But I appreciate the specificity of the situation because he's definitely it's about focus for me. I think of movies like there was a recent one called like Shadow in the Clouds or something.
Okay.
It was about a World War II plane with a gremlin on the outside, quote unquote. And Chloe Grace Moritz plays an onboard ship gunner who becomes obsessed with seeing it out there on the wing, inspired by the Twilight Zone story, essentially. And it's all about how you're in a shitty situation. This is literally World War II. You're preoccupied, flying out of where you're at. But then you get hit with something supernatural that you have to deal with at the same time.
It's too much,
and
man.
now you have
It's
to split your focus a little bit. It's like The Thing. You're not expecting it. It comes out of nowhere. You were just doing your job, minding your business. In a shitty situation, and then it gets Freaky deaky.
Freaky deaky indeed.
I appreciates it.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more into it for sure. Now that we're out of the schematics. I made my way to the galley door and paused to listen in the galley. I couldn't hear anything over the sound of the raging storm outside. I inched my way inside and felt along the wall until I was at the intercom. The intercom system had a battery supply that would activate upon power loss. I hit the button and asked for the captain. I only heard static. After several seconds that felt like hours, I heard a mate I'll refer to as Omar say,
"Who are you? Where are you? Carl is hurt. That's Carl with a K. The ship is damaged. What has happened?"
I identified myself, and he relayed that Carl had fallen after the trio of large waves and broken his arm. The last thing I heard was that we couldn't turn further inland because the storm got far worse when we did. With a pop, the message faded to static that I was unfamiliar with, and I heard a voice I didn't recognize broadcast across the intercom system. "You will all die."
Hell yeah.
I felt my hair stand on end. The voice was not only over the intercom system, but also just inches from my face. I scrambled backwards and felt an insane heat grow from the galley. It had used the intercom I was actively using to transmit that, as far as I could tell, to the entire ship. I ran to try and get back to the stern of the ship where I knew there'd be other people. I ran full speed through the darkness and stumbled directly into a ladder well leading down to the next deck. I caught myself at the last second, but not before wrenching my ankle and banging my head yet again into the hard metal. I knew it wasn't broken, but I could feel shooting pain in my foot with every step, and I began to limp hard. I jumped down the ladder well and followed the dim emergency lights towards the main crew area. The first intercom I came to didn't help much. No one responded to my pleas for help. I finally made my way to the bridge and found no one. There was a little blood on the floor, but no crew. What the fuck? I looked out the windows and into the driving storm to see a small blinking light off to the side of the ship. The crew had taken the lone lifeboat and left me on board those cats! Oh, that's so rude! God damn! Going through all this trauma and he's the only one left? That threw me. I tried to radio the lifeboat, but the radio did nothing but crackle. Finally, the lights on the bridge began to flicker as well. I was going to die.
I mean, that is what you were told, yeah.
Yes. The thing had finally caught me. I had almost given up when I realized that I did have one last resort. We had survival suits stored in the hold of the ship. If I could make it there, I might have a chance. Not a great one, but at least a chance in the frigid waters. The only way there would be on the surface of the ship. I ran to the door leading out of the bridge and tore it open. The wind was terrible. It was driving sleet and snow all over the ship. It wasn't quite cold enough to outright freeze the salt water, but precipitation was a different story. I ran as best as I could on my hobbled leg and in the horrible weather, covering the distance from stern to bow in about a minute. The outside lights were still operating, but I could see the bridge flicker and go dark after a few seconds. I needed to hurry. I opened the door leading to the hold and found it too warm. Something was wrong. The lights were still on. Yeah. The lights were still on, but the temperature was just too high. The temperature is just too high! I ran
It's just
towards...
Usher, you know?
Yeah.
Usher's found a way on ship and he's just saying it's getting hot in here, and then you're supposed to say how hot, and then he's going to tell you to take your clothes off, you know?
Oh, that just sounds like delirious hypothermia as well. I ran towards the rear of the hold to get to the emergency suits, only to see the water rush in from the open door. More water than there should have been. Too much water. I suddenly found myself floating and swimming in frigid water. It filled the room, and then I saw the ceiling, and I saw up at the ceiling. What? It filled the room, and then I saw up at the ceiling gasping for breath.
Yeah, it sounds like the ceiling is what's gasping for breath, but he's saying that he jumped in the water and looked up.
Yeah.
He just didn't say it very well.
Yeah. No words good. I felt the ship move again and I was thrown towards the wall. That was the last thing I remembered. I woke up on the table of our ship's doctor staring into the bright light. He was looking away from me when I woke, and I struggled to form the words to speak. He noticed I was up and informed me that something strange had happened on board. No shit. The power in the forward section of the ship had been lost in the storm, but the stern and engines remained fully operational. I had been found soaked in sea water in a survival suit, running an incredibly high fever, convulsing on the floor of the cargo hold. I'd taken a good shot to the head and probably had a concussion. I began to finally relax. I went back to my room with orders to rest, and the crew could figure out food for themselves that night. I made it all the way back to my room when I realized that I had forgotten my jacket at the doctor's. I opened the door and grabbed it from the table and made my way back to my small room. As I lay down to sleep, I remembered that my jacket had been burned, and I absent-mindedly turned my jacket around to make sure there weren't any claw marks or scorches on it. Nothing. As I threw it on my chair, it turned inside out, revealing a massive scorch in the shape of a door handle and a sizable claw mark scorched onto the inside, exactly where it would have been if the jacket was on inside out. I had to check the hold. I made for the front of the ship in a hurry. The hold was warm like it had been earlier. The crane was undamaged on the surface and the storm hadn't abated much. I entered the hold and saw the cargo container. Crosses were painted on every side still, but it was wedged in place as always. Properly secured and unopened,
Oh shit.
I breathed a sigh of relief and went back to my room. I suddenly heard a voice over the intercom, a familiar one this time. I'm still here. I looked back to the container in time to see the power flicker on, revealing a large black figure standing in front of the container. The power almost immediately went back out, and I was left dumbstruck. Oh my goodness.
He's being he's being enticed by a demonic trickster, I think.
Yeah, some kind of crazy, sexy, hot trickster god. Or demon. I ran back to my room, threw the jacket out the window and locked the door for what that was worth. I made excuses to the captain and crew to avoid the front of the ship. What? To avoid the front of the ship the rest of the journey. It wasn't hard.
It's okay.
Once we arrived at Puerto Montt, I informed the captain that I was quitting. I found overland transport back to home and never looked back. I saw it the entire way home out of my peripheral vision. Oh, that's creepy. I could see the shadows moving with the truck, or when we'd be on a small boat, I'd see things in the water. Once I got home, I found a job cooking in a small restaurant and kept to myself. After about 8 months, I never saw it again. I was then contacted by an insurance agency. My old ship had sunk.
Oh, fuck.
They'd taken the journey around Cape Horn one too many times and were hit by a trio of waves that rolled the vessel. Far out, man. It almost righted itself, but the main crane had torn free and gouged a large hole in the front of the vessel. This let water in rapidly and flooded the port side of the ship. It never recovered. All hands were at sea except for the captain. He was found in a survival suit, clutching a crucifix that he commonly wore around his neck.
Wow.
He was still alive when they found him, but he was burnt over 60% of his body. He mumbled the Lord's Prayer until they put him in an induced coma to recover from the burns at the hospital. He never came out, dying less than a full day later.
Damn.
Yeah. The ship has never been accurately located, though the best estimates put it significantly off course. The last proper coordinates read below 60 degrees south. They were closer to Antarctica than to South America.
Wow.
Wow.
That was an insane fucking story.
Yeah.
And I loved it. a little too informative, like a little too wordy.
Yeah.
He could have said just as many words in a little bit better of a way, I think. But there was definitely like a demon on board or something.
Yeah. I was hoping he'd go into the demonness a little bit more, but
it's really just a black veiled shadowy monster.
yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yeah.
I enjoyed that thoroughly.
I like the noticing it in the peripherals. I got that after watching Blair Witch for the first time when I was a kid.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. I'm really excited that that's where that story went, because this next one I've been looking forward to reading for a very long time.
Yeah.
Very similar idea. But you had called Dracula with your last one.
Yeah.
I'm calling Clovey out of Cloverfield for this one.
Rad.
As the title is, in our quest to drill for more and more oil, I think we finally went too deep.
Yes, exciting.
And I don't know if that's gonna get into kaiju territory, but that's where I'd go.
Yeah.
With a title like that. Anyway, Unknown Cargo on to drilling too deep. We're really have a theme going here.
I'm liking this.
I've worked in petroleum engineering for 35 years. Most of it has been in the Gulf of Mexico, though I'd done a bit of contract work in the Middle East and Canada. After the BP disaster, there had been quite a pressure on the major petroleum companies to use extra caution and increase their R&D budgets to design safer technologies to prevent another environmental catastrophe. You know, but we're going to continue to think that global warming doesn't exist. For most of the people in my position, that meant more work and less pay, of course. My most recent employer has been one of the big American oil companies. I'm not going to name them, but I'll name them Texaco. I've been stationed on an experimental, semi-secret offshore platform in the Gulf of Mexico. Muy bien. I say semi-secret because we're using a lot of new, highly proprietary technologies. If our competitors were to learn about them, we'd be set back a few years and countless billions of dollars. I think he means to say pesos. All outward appearances would suggest we're a normal platform, but that's outfitted for extreme depth drilling. If only the competition knew how deep we were going. Deeper and deeper. Deeper. The platform is right near the edge of the drop-off, leading to the 6B abyssal plain. One of the new technologies we've employed involve our remotely operated submersibles. They're basically just submarine drones with lots of cameras and equipment on them that can go super deep. All the ones we'd used in the past needed to be tethered to the surface using a fiber optic connection. The physical connection had its pros and cons. Fiber optic connections are speedy as all hell, which means command and data can be sent back and forth to the drone with no meaningful lag. A major downside, however, is that a physical cable limits the maneuvering capabilities of the drone. At the depths we were hoping to reach, the topography was unknown. Previous attempts to send tethered drones ended in failure when the cables were severed by the terrain. Even with our best satellite sonar and early drone imagery, our knowledge of the area we wanted to drill was terrible. The resolution was too low for any meaningful data to be gleaned. We knew there was oil down there. Lots and lots and lots of it. But until we could develop new ways to map the bottom, we were screwed. A guy named Masaharu Ajibana changed everything for us. but I'm just gonna call him Senpai. He'd been a materials scientist we'd brought on to work on some of the new ceramics composites that we use in our drill heads. And when he saw the new undisclosed material we'd been wanting to employ in the future drills, he must have spent 4 days straight poring over the properties with an enthusiasm I'd never seen in a person over the age of 5. At the end of those 4 days, Senpai not only understood that materials better than the team who invented them, but he'd gotten an idea about how to transmit data through miles of murky salt water using some bizarre form of piezoelectric resonance unique to the properties of the new ceramics. Essentially, a transceiver on the drone would resonate at the same frequency as one on the platform. Once the transceivers were locked in an oscillatory pattern, smaller, tighter waveforms from a second set of transceivers would traverse the oscillation quote-unquote cable, linking the drone and the platform. Of course, it's not rocket science. Nearly every scientist in every department in the company said this was entirely impossible. Still, there was enough support from a few key players in R&D that Senpai's claims were investigated. Investigation led to cursory confirmations, and cursory confirmations led to experiments. Experiments led to shocking successes. And in shocking successes led to fast development and deployment of new technology in the history of a company. It's that technology our company employed 3 weeks ago. We'd been using a fleet of 9 drones to map the abyssal plain of Sigsbee Deep. That's 1 hub drone and 8 mappers. The hub has 1 main resonator which communicates with the platform, and 8 smaller drones which communicate with the mappers. We were dumbfounded not only by the simplicity and the ease of the data transmissions, but by the richness of the data we were seeing. Another technology we deployed for this project was a small cable-form drill mounted on the mappers. It was a drill head equipped with new ceramics and could cut through the bottom of the plane with ease. These cables were 3,000 feet long. Not anything major, but they allowed the mappers to confirm the massive salt sheet we'd assumed was covering these oil deposits. Once the drill cable maxes out, a tiny device gets the deposit in the cavity. It's mostly multi-level sonar with some seismographs and embedded communicators. Nothing too advanced. It measures minutes seismic activity. I have no idea what I say. I feel like Han Solo. I feel like Harrison Ford when he was yelling at yelling at George Lucas about the shit he had to say in Star Wars, because he would just be like, George, I don't know what this means. And George would just be like, well, just say it like this. And he would be like, okay, fine, fuck it. The data gets processed by our CPU cluster and is incorporated into our future drilling plans. I get the idea. They're mapping an area, they're marking terrain. Like, it's not, I don't know why he has to explain it this way.
Yeah. God damn.
As I said, we've been mapping for 3 weeks. And a week ago, the seismographs started picking up some bizarre activity. And something else happened. It's something neither I nor the onboard medics can adequately explain. Last Tuesday, Gervaso Zaragoza, a member of my team, went to the infirmary complaining of severe headaches. He had no history of migraines until the headaches started and seemed to be in perfect health. The severity of the pain grew as the day went on, and after a couple hours he was screaming. And when I stepped out of the infirmary, another team member came to me and casually mentioned the seismic activity of the plane had been rising all day. And on a whim, I asked him to send a sleep command to the seismographs, and a minute later, Gervaso was fine. We resumed the operation of the seismographs later in the afternoon. Gervaso, who was resting but otherwise alert, was unaffected. I knew it had to be a coincidence and did my best To put the event out of my mind, Gervaso is now going to be called Luigi for simplicity's terms. So we have Luigi and Senpai.
Okay.
On Wednesday, the mappers were spread in a wide circle out of the hub, and they were pinging the interior of the circle with extremely high-resolution sonar, as well as multi-laser topography measurements as the circle widened. The goal was to see if there had been any appreciable surface shifts since the last measurement 3 days earlier. With the seismic activity we'd experienced, I'd expected some shifts to be detected. There were no shifts. Instead, there was a series of long, unbroken convexities lining the seafloor. The scan resolution was extremely sharp, and we could clearly see the digitized images of straight lines pushing nearly a meter above the plane. Even with the scans, I wanted to see a camera feed, so I directed the camera to send a raw feed to the platform, and the light of the drone went on, and the screen displayed a long, perfectly straight mound in the silt that stretched for miles. The other mappers displayed the same thing. The onboard geologist wouldn't rule out the possibility of a seismic event because the cause of the convexities. He said we knew very little about the seismological properties of the salt plate beneath the plane. The pressures of the silt and the water above it and the oil and gas below made for an intensely complicated interaction model, and even though he'd never heard the type of thing we were seeing, instances of symmetry in natural geology were well known.
Of course.
He mentioned the basalt formations at Giant's Causeway, and that's how he left it. Easy as that. I wasn't convinced. Even though I'm not a geologist, it seemed odd that such obvious and large changes could occur with the comparatively little seismic activity we've seen. Right. Easy. Even though the activity had increased as we'd observed it, it still hadn't come close to reaching an intensity that would have moved such a large amount of rock and water. I sound smart. 2 days later, on another mapping mission, I took manual control of one of the drones. I said, fuck it, let's play GTA with this bitch.
Yeah.
I'd had the guys from Robotics outfit another couple cameras and lights to go outside. I guided the sub along the tallest of the convexities and positioned it about a foot above its surface. All of the cameras and lights traced along the convex surface, no visible change from the other day. I extended the drill, and the drill head sank into the convexity and stopped. It was stuck. The transceivers on the hub reported error transmissions from the mapper. I reversed the drill, back it out, and try again. Throughout the platform, I heard a number of sharp reports that sounded like gunshots, and in the other room, shouts of surprise and screams of fear ringing out. I ran from the control panel to see what was going on, and John Edmondson was lying on the floor. A hole had appeared in his belly. A sucking sound filled the room, coupled with John screaming with an intensity I'd never known to be possible.
What the fuck?
He moved his hands to the wound in an attempt to plug it, but with a series of horrible wet cracks, his hands and arms were pulled into his belly. Above him, a hole exploded in the steel ceiling, its ragged edges pointing downward. I realized John was being pulled down to the deck below.
What the fuck, bro?
I ran down the steps and watched with profound horror as the man was pulled through a series of holes the size of dimes. All the way through every floor platform down into the water. I ran down each floor, watching the column of gore disappear ever downward, and 2 minutes later a foam of pulp and entrails floated in a heap on a choppy surface of the water.
God.
I slowly plodded. Yeah, what a way to go. I slowly plodded back up the steps, unsure if what I'd just seen could possibly have been real, and I was jolted out of my contemplation when I realized that behind the shrill voices of my coworkers, an alarm was screaming from the drone control room. I ran back upstairs, past my traumatized colleagues, and made it to the control room, and the camera feed was gone. I rewound to the moment I'd left the room and started at the screen, and I think he means stared.
Stared, yeah.
And stared at the screen with disbelief. The convexity below the drone shook like an electric shock had coursed through its bulk. Then the silt covering it began to fall away. It wasn't a rock formation. Ripples of peristaltic convulsions seethed along a gray, scarred surface. A hole opened in the surface of it, and the drill cable began to get sucked in. As the 3,000 feet were being consumed, the camera showed a vacant column the width of a dime pointing straight up. I realized that must have been what had killed John. Once the drill cable disappeared, the screen went black, the drone presumably gone, the other drones still mapping away the mechanical obliviousness. I called up the real-time sonar data. The convexities had disappeared from the sea floor. I pulled back on the sonar map and tried to figure out what I was seeing. The sonar feed was slow, around 2 frames per second. Still, there was no mistaking what was coming on screen. The convexities had all lifted from the abyssal plane and were waving back and forth through the water. They were massive, easily 7,000 feet long. I couldn't figure out what was causing them to move. Then, as the reality of John's death started to sink in and the strangeness of what the camera showed before it went out began to take a hold in my mind, I came to the realization that was impossible to ignore. What I was seeing wasn't an effect of bizarre deep-sea geology. They were colossal, writhing tentacles.
Cthulhu!
Yeah, that'd be pretty gnarly. I'm digging it. I mean, he needs to stop talking like such a fucking nerd, but I guess it's providing some type of authenticity to the background of the story.
Yeah. Holy moly.
The following hours passed in a blur of frantic calls to corporate, system checks, and a near riot when the divers refused to collect the rapidly dispersing grease slick that used to be John Edmondson.
Ugh.
The tension broke when Luigi, whose headache had returned with a vengeance, grabbed a wrench that weighed almost as much as he did, hoisted it over his head like he was going to hit someone, and then toppled backward and fell on his ass. It's amazing how the humor of someone falling down can diffuse a volatile situation. It is, isn't it? After a few minutes, the After a few minutes, the divers stopped complaining and did their part, while the rest of the crew shut up and went back to work. Yeah, it's fine.
But what about the tentacles? What the hell?
I wouldn't immediately be scared about anything that's going on, specifically the person who was pulled into the abyss. I hadn't told anyone what I'd seen in the water. Newsflash. As far as corporate was concerned, a catastrophic failure in the hydraulic system was what had pulped their employee. Yes, people with knowledge of the systems involved would be able to dispute it, but at the moment, which was what mattered, no one did. I'd be able to talk with corporate later in the week once I knew what was going on, and they'd appreciate me keeping it from the rest of the crew. A plausible lie is always better than a disruptive truth. During the commotion, when I was trying to get everyone to calm down, the tentacles, or whatever they were, had fallen back to the floor of the plane. They sat in a straight line at the bottom. I dumped all the data showing their movement to a pair of USB sticks, pocketed them, and purged the storage array of any evidence. For the rest of the day, I sat at a console and did my best to work without interruption while the calls to and from corporate had slowed every 45 minutes. I'd be forced to respond to another board member's secretary asking me the same questions I'd already answered a dozen times, and thankfully, as the day came to an end, even those calls died down. It was quiet. My direct supervisors left via helicopter in the early evening. I was in charge for the weekend. It wasn't a new experience. The upper management of the platform had the freedom to go back to the mainland and visit their families a few times a month, and they did so as frequently as possible. I was used to being in charge. In fact, I enjoyed not having anyone breathing down my neck. In the morning, more of the crew were reporting headaches. Luigi was not one of them. He said he felt a lot better and even volunteered to take the shifts of a few of his colleagues who were under the weather. His supervisor, Quan Williams, who felt like shit, told him to do whatever he wanted. I found out about that much later. I'd been busy since early in the morning, working remotely from my dorm and using my laptop to control one of the drones. I was studying the tentacles. Overnight, one had moved. Not much, but enough to warrant my investigation, especially because it was touching one of the platform's support beams. To make matters worse, the bottom was exceptionally murky. Sediment was floating in a thick cloud. Visibility was awful. While I could see the tentacle touching the platform through a visual sonar composite, the resolution was low. It was obvious there was movement on the floor of the plane, but its source was invisible. Part of me was certain something was being intentionally hidden. Around noon, Anand, the head medic, knocked on my door. I met him in the hallway, and he informed me that 34 of the 66 crew members were sick with debilitating headaches. I told him to keep me a chicken abreast of what was going on, and if anyone took a turn for the worse, to keep it quiet and to come to me immediately. He nodded. I think he understood the importance of avoiding another commotion. I didn't have to wait long. Anand came back at 2 p.m. and he looked upset. When I'd asked who'd gotten worse, he looked around, then put his fingers to his lips, shushing me. And I nodded, and he beckoned me to follow him, and so I did. We traversed the labyrinthine staircases of the platform. We were heading toward the mechanical room. I hated the mechanical room. Fuck the mechanical room. The mechanical room was where all the heaviest equipment was located. It was always loud, always filthy, always dangerous. Pumps and engines rattled and expelled noxious fumes, while hydraulic cables transported fluids under pressure so high that a leak no wider than a human hair could cut a man in half. The crew who worked down there were a mixture of brave and insane. They'd been putting in double time over the last few weeks as they tested and prepared the platforms to begin its main drilling cycle. Anand and I reached the room and found 5 crew members being kept at bay by their supervisor, Karen Vant. When they saw me, they said, yeah, it's a fucking Karen. And when they saw me, they started asking questions, all relating to Luigi, who volunteered to work there for the day, and Frank Pancakes. I'd never met Frank Pancakes before, but I knew he was one of the newer mechanics to the platform. Karen told her guy to shut up and let us through, and to their credit, they did. As you can tell, Frank Pancake's last name is organic. Sugar-free. Karen, Anand, and I walked down the main corridor between 2 massive generators. Karen told us how all the holes in the platform from the accident with Edmondson had been patched. All but one. The one we were coming up on. The mechanical room was essentially the basement of the platform. Below it was nothing but pipes, cables, and water. I saw the hole ahead of us, and as we got closer, I saw there was something coming out of it. Something bright red, glinting in the harsh, overhead fluorescent light, and my breath caught in my throat. We approached the hole, 100 feet below. Greenish, gray waves heaved against one another. I got on my knees and peered down, making sure not to touch the thing coming out. On the northern support beam, a thin line of red rose out of the gulf, all the way to the underside of the platform, and over to the hole. Once inside it, it stretched down the corridor. Karen asked me if I had any idea what it was, and I lied, and I told her I had no idea. Anand urged us forward, and we continued down the corridor, following the red tube.
It's a dick.
Corners.
It's a tentacle dick.
It's big old dick, right?
Yeah.
We turned corners and ducked under cables and piping until we reached one of the hottest, noisiest, and filthiest corners of the room. Luigi was there, facing Frank Pancakes. They stood motionless and open-mouthed, staring at one another as we walked toward them, and they didn't move or acknowledge our approach. The closer we got, it became obvious something was very, very wrong with them. The red thing had grown up Luigi's leg and chest and appeared to have entered his face under his chin. But this was the least disconcerting part.
Sorry, I'm just imagining it as a big giant tentacle penis.
The light was dim over here, blocking by the piping and machinery. I had to get in close to see exactly what was happening, and Karen produced a flashlight without my knowledge, and as soon as I was within a foot of their faces, she flicked on the light and I gasped. Luigi and Frank Pancakes were joined by thin, red veins. They appeared to have sprouted from Luigi's eyes and then entered Frank Pancake's face at various spots in his mouth, eyes, and forehead. They trembled slightly, almost like they were shivering, as I watched another cilia-like vein pushed from the center of Luigi's eye and twirled outward, searching for purchase before settling on Frank's temple and slipping inside.
What is... What? No, hang on, sorry. My brain immediately wanted to do an accent. What is it?
Karen asked, and I looked at Anand, and he shook his head. A string of drool oozed out of Frank's mouth. "We can't leave them here," Anand said. "They need to get to a hospital." "Can we move them?" "I don't know. They might move on their own if we ask." "Luigi, estás bien?" He didn't answer. He didn't move. "Frank Pancakes?" Nothing. I took the flashlight from Karen and touched it to the veins, and they stretched under the pressure but didn't react, and I pressed harder. "Maybe you shouldn't," started Anand, which is my immediate first thing to say. What the fuck are you doing? But I already pressed hard enough to detach one of the veins from under Frank's tongue. Frank exhaled heavily, and his left eye turned to look at me. And before any of us could react, the entire platform shook. "What the fuck was that?" Anand practically shouted.
I have no idea.
Karen answered, wide-eyed.
It felt like something just crashed into one of the support beams.
And that's where you end? Oh.
Road?
What a butt fuck of an ending.
Is there a part 2? What the hell?
That was part 2. Let me see if I can find a part 3.
God damn. I want to know what the veiny tentacle penis things do.
Let me see. I'm on his website right now. Let me see if there's...
Ever since I mentioned Yorotsuki Doji, all I've got in the mind is, like, tentacle penis demons.
Tentacle penis demons, yep. I mean, you called it yet again.
They had some nice bits of gore, though. Anything that goes through, like, small holes and becomes a bit more, like, fever dreamy.
Oh, that was... Yeah, that was gnarly. You were making some fun noises while I was reading that. You were feeling that dude's pain getting pulled down. He says we'll be concluded. So let me try looking for... So at least he implies that if he didn't finish it yet, he's going to finish it later. Which is only a little bit of a bummer, because I feel like I've been holding on to this story for years.
Right.
Yeah, nothing comes up when I search a part 3.
Damn, maybe that's something we can revisit in the future.
We might have to come back to this. But I liked it enough to do that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
It was fun. It had something crazy going on. What do you think was down there? They were implying that something was living in the deep, some tentacly beast that could kind of take over people, maybe?
Yeah.
Parasitic in nature, or perhaps proxy in nature.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what connects to big tentacles and little veins. I don't know. That's creepy. It definitely applies to the body horror that Unsettling Stories is known for using.
Exactly.
Anyway, just because at least your story ended, I do actually think I enjoyed yours more. I think Reddit No Sleep wins this one for me, and that's just because the guy goes out to tell a story and he kind of sets up the context really well and then finishes it. This one didn't do a lot of that. I liked the terminology and I liked the setting. But when it came to like what we were dealing with, I was asking myself like too many questions. And like what were we actually dealing with? What were we seeing? And it seemed to like hop around a little bit too much. Like when you describe these huge fucking tentacles, why are we now dealing with something as small as a vein, you know? Like
Yeah.
what's the connection? What's the connection between the two? Are you implying that it's on the ship in a way, or are you saying that it's attacking you, like consuming the entire thing inside and out?
Yeah.
You know, what's its motivation?
Yeah.
You know, I get that we're drilling, and that can, you know, that's why I brought up Cloverfield in the first place. Cloverfield's entire online backstory is there are even fake news articles about it. There was a drill off the coast, the eastern coast of the United States, that essentially was mining a certain chemical, a certain microbe that was used for food for other organisms deep in the ocean. And when we took too much of it away, essentially a wandering creature of the deep came looking for it, and the creature that we see in Cloverfield is a baby of a larger one.
Yes, that's
that
right.
had been essentially looking for food, because the drill had been sucking a lot of it up. That's like a canon actual backstory to Cloverfield that you can find online, but is not brought up in the movie at all.
Yeah.
It's only implied as Cloverfield has gone on with its many sequels, and as well as offshoots in reference to Cloverfield Lane. Not sure if the aliens have anything to do with the Clovey monsters or not. No one knows. But yeah, apparently there is finally coming a Cloverfield sequel, so I guess we can be excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't watched the first one in a very long time, and this is all making me want to rewatch all of them.
Yeah, I like the first one the most, obviously. I think Lane is a solid follow-up, but you lose me on the aliens a little bit, and that's just because they really don't have anything in my mind to do with Cloverfield.
Yeah.
You know, you could have just named it a different movie. Like, originally its working title was Valencia, I think. And I would have much rather the title have just been... Oh, no, that was the title of Cloverfield Paradox, I'm sorry. So, no, that one was called The Cellar or something. It was called like Safe House or something. Its title was really obscure. The original working story was that Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character was never meant to get out of the bunker. Like, the bunker would essentially be the end of the movie, and you never know if what's on the other side. You know, they probably would have padded it with like 20 more minutes of tension inside the bunker as opposed to the outside sequence. But J.J. Abrams saw it and thought, you know, how about we mess with the ending a little bit? I'll give you some more funding. We can rework this story a little bit, and they signed on to it, and that's why it became a Cloverfield movie. The same thing with Valencia, which was the Other Worlds Paradox thing. Aspect of Cloverfield Paradox, and essentially in that movie they travel from one universe to another, disrupting the satellite that essentially crashes down in the first Cloverfield movie, and then the ending twist reveal is that those monsters evidently are like a global threat, the big ones that come looking for their baby, essentially. To some degree, we don't know. The ending of Cloverfield Paradox struck me as really stupid. Because she's on the escape pod talking about how she's going to come back to her husband, and he's like, no, stay up there where you're safe. Stay up there where it's nice. You can live up there. There's nothing down here. These giant monsters have destroyed the planet. You know, if that's the case, why are we sexting?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be dead, eaten by a giant monster or something?
Yeah.
And then, you know, of course they have to show it, so it comes roaring up out of the clouds to get everyone's dick hard for like 1 second.
Yeah. With those ones and many others that have a lot of multi-sequels, it's like, it seems to be a hard line to ride on cash grab versus continuing and expanding the plot.
I think they finally got that, because I remember hearing that Cloverfield Lane did well, like for its budget. Its budget was something like a couple $1 million, so like I'm sure it did better than that. But I remember hearing that the reason why Paradox went to Netflix is because they didn't think it was going to do well, and I don't think it did. I mean, I think it did as well as a Netflix movie could do when announced at the Super Bowl, like it was. But not a great movie in hindsight, and that's why I'm confused about where the second one may go, because apparently they finally greenlit a 2, and no one knows if it's going to be prequel to 1, side story of 1, maybe a different perspective of the story of 1, but, you know, told from maybe someone who lives on a different coast and is witnessing, you know, from the outside, and maybe wants to go inside and figure out what's going on. I don't know. No one knows. The second one, for all I know, could take place in the fucking, you know, apocalypse world of the future of Cloverfield Paradox, for all we know. I have no fucking clue. But I'm down for it. You know, like, I liked the first one enough to say that any continuation of that story, I'd be interested to see where it goes. It beats some of the other shit that I've been watching, sure.
Yeah.
I've been like hard in on anime recently.
Nice. Yeah, both these stories, because did you say this was No Sleep versus
Unsettling Stories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, both of them had this weird thing that kind of reminded me of like authors from like the 19th century, where it's like a whole lot of gasbagging about all these certain details and then getting into the creature, the monster.
The details don't matter too much, but they provide a healthy amount of context to make you believe at least where the story is coming from. Not that it matters to the demon or the monster, you know, the plot. I wouldn't say it's too Lovecraftian. Lovecraft did use a good amount of detail, but I think his writing just had like a different prose, a different feel to it. But it definitely does remind me of like a Shelley. You're right. She was a little bit more romantic, but someone who would provide you the delicate aspects of a wooden banister, in a story about like a dead monster,
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed reading both of those. I did as well. As disappointed as I am that the second story didn't end, you could say it ended there and that the entire fucking thing collapsed, and that's the last message we have from the dude on the ship from corporate. And the illusion is that don't go looking for shit. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Yeah, and don't fucking work for oil drilling companies. Lest you fuck off the big giant tentacle penis demon.
Of the subspace of the Marianas Trench. Yeah, definitely interesting. I liked Unknown Cargo more. I would say No Sleep wins this fight. But No Sleep tends to win every fight, so that's fair.
Yeah.
It's an unfair advantage that No Sleep has, being more believable and knowing its limitations. I believe Sin Eater came from No Sleep. Left Right Game came from No Sleep. To their benefit, they are usually the winners of all categories. But to Torus Filth, I hope you had a lot of fun on this episode. It was a lot of fun talking with you and reading with you.
So much fun, mate.
I thought you did a very good job reading
Thank
on your
you.
story, so I hope everyone enjoyed listening to her, because she's going to be back for another one sometime soon.
You better have fucking liked it, you little cunts, you all out there. You better fucking like how I read stories. So I'm going to be back, and I want to do more, and I want to do more voices.
See,
Holy
she's doing
shit.
my thing where I get real close to the camera and I tell everyone to fucking suck a dick if you don't like listening to this show, because you can go listen to some other shit if you really want to. But anyway, it's this show has always been, come on, join the fun. We're just reading some stupid shit while we're high off our asses. So, I had fun reading our stupid shit, Taurus.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, Captain. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so keen to do more
Good
of
to
this.
have you on board. Now walk the fucking plank, you scurvy dog. I'm suddenly filled with the urge to draw your character as a pirate.
Yes! Yep. Someone called me a pirate with how I handle my van life and my park life, and fucking bring it on. Ride the wild seas of life.
I had a different idea. We'll see which one wins out. But is there any closing ideas you want to leave with our company of listeners?
Oh, I've thought about this moment so many times, and now that it's here, I don't know what to say.
I don't know. I don't have anything.
Be good cunts, listen to the podcast, buy some merch, get up on my level.
Yes. That is actually the message.
Yeah, and fucking keep on keeping on, be good cunts, be good bitches, and I'm happy to be part of the crew now, and kia ora, tumiki.
Be good cuts. That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing you could have ended the episode with.
I wait till the day's end when the moon is high and little rise with the tide with the lust for life. I'm as an army, I'm a heart as a horde, and then we'll look across the land until we stand at the shore. I'll wait till day's end when the moon is high and little rise with the tide with the lust for life. I'm as an army, I'm a heart as a horde, and then we'll look across the land until we stand at the shore.